Hello everyone, my name is Gabby, and welcome back to another Dragon Ball Super review, this time reviewing episode 111. Frieza gives Goku some of his energy as repayment for Goku saving his life on Namek, saying all debts are now settled. Meanwhile, Hit fights Jiren, who quickly manages to adapt to Hit's time skip. As he realizes his technique is getting countered easily, Hit pulls out his trump card, using the time skip on Jiren to freeze him for as long as he can. But Jiren is so strong that he manages to break out of it and eliminate Hit. The tournament is now halfway through, and Jiren believes there's no one else he needs to fight for. So, what did I like about this episode? Well, first of all, that kind of resolution that we got to the cliffhanger that we had at the end of the last episode of Freeza standing over Goku. It turns out that Freeza wasn't going to attack Goku, he's going to share some of his energy with him as basically repayment for Goku saving his life on Namek. Like, it seems like they literally use these same words, so it's literally Freeza basically throwing that in his face. On its own, it was just a fun throwback, but I think the thing that I especially liked about it and the way that it was sort of handled was the stuff that Freeza was sort of going on about after that, where he's basically just sort of being like, okay, now we're even, and I'm hoping that you kind of basically keep fighting for us, because there's some people, like that Jiren guy, I wouldn't really want to have to face him myself. It's fun because it shows that even though Frieza is helping Goku, he kind of ends off this all with basically him being completely in charge. It feels like he's kind of in control of the situation, and it's kind of fun. It's that kind of uneasy alliance thing that, I'll be honest, I think I have warmed up to quite a bit. And then we get to the fight between Hit and Jiren, and I liked it for two reasons. First of all, we did get to see a lot of Hit's sort of techniques. He didn't just necessarily try the time skip once and then he got counted. He tried the time skip quite a few times. He used that kind of phantom-y clone thing, and he had this whole kind of special technique, trump card thing about basically using the time skip on somebody else to basically trap them in time, which is actually really cool. It's a really cool idea for a technique, and I like it. It's not just like he tried once and then he fails and he gets eliminated. Like, it does feel like he's basically pulling out everything in his arsenal, or at least a lot of things in his arsenal, and they're all just not working because Jiren is just too strong. So it feels like a proper fight, basically. And the second thing is basically kind of Hit's attitude and sort of the things that he's saying and thinking, basically when he starts to realize that he might not have a chance against Jiren and he might actually be pretty hopelessly outmatched. I kind of like the way he acted. It kind of almost felt like he was sort of showing kind of his essential character development, sort of how the events of Dragon Ball Super and the Tournament of Power have changed him. Because it feels like he really does care about Universe 6 and about the fate of everybody in that universe, to the point that he's going to do things that are very much unlike him, like go around and try to sort of help the Universe 6 Saiyans in a way, realizing that he doesn't necessarily have to fight on his own, and even sort of risking his life and essentially his own existence on an attack that might not actually work, which he basically specifically says is kind of not really like him. He wouldn't normally act like this, but hey, because of Dragon Ball Super, because of these events, he's realizing he's actually caring for Universe 6. It's changing him. It's fun. It's character development. We get to see why and how and all that kind of stuff. As for what I didn't like about this episode, so in the end, in this episode, Hit's big, final, last-ditch effort technique to try and basically get Jiren out of the game is to use his time skip to not really find a way to defeat Jiren, but only really just kind of paralyze Jiren. I mean, I'll be honest, just kind of looking at that objectively, that seems like a very kind of small plan. Not a very successful plan. It almost makes it feel like Hit has stopped trying. I mean, what's the best possible outcome of this? Even if the plan actually works and Hit has enough energy to sustain that and to paralyze Jiren for all the remaining 20 or so minutes of the tournament, what's stopping Toppo or Dispo from just going in there and then attacking Hit while he is distracted trying to paralyze Jiren? It doesn't feel like it's a very well thought out plan that could last for very long. I mean, I completely understand the in-universe logic that Jiren might actually be so strong that just paralyzing him is probably the best thing that Hit could possibly hope to accomplish. The power gap is so huge and so different that Hit couldn't possibly even come up with a plan to defeat him. The kind of inevitable storytelling issue is because there's basically not as much at stake, that even if Hit succeeds in this, it's not like Jiren is going to get out. It also means that when it fails, there's kind of less reason to care. Plus, it also leads to that issue where Jiren is paralyzed and the other Universe 6 Saiyans are kind of standing right there, and Hit is basically like, okay guys, I know literally one of the strongest competitors in this entire tournament is standing right there completely at my mercy right next to the edge of the arena, but I want you to not help me. In fact, you should all go off and go somewhere else because I've totally got this. Once again, I understand the in-universe logic that perhaps even with all of the Universe 6 Saiyans working together, they might not be able to just kind of like push Jiren out the ring even though he's paralyzed because Jiren is just that strong. But basically I think my problem was there wasn't really much of a kind of very clear communication before all this stuff was happening that if they did try to do this, it wouldn't work. And honestly, even if they didn't know if it would work or not, you'd think that they would at least try it. Because I feel like that wasn't really communicated very obviously. It just kind of felt like there were easier options there that the characters were just somehow kind of forgetting about. I mean, it's not inconsistent. I can understand it. I just don't think that the reasonings were really communicated very well because, in fact, the reasonings weren't really explained at all. So, as for next episode? Well, Kappa looks like he's having a rough fight, but he's getting some help from his master Vegeta, and it looks like that isn't necessarily going to please everyone, including Freeza. I'm actually really interested in this episode for two reasons. One, the fact that the preview seems to imply that we're also seeing more of Gohan and Piccolo fighting than the Namekians makes me think that the fights now, all of the fights that all the characters are going to go through, aren't necessarily going to be just like kind of like warm-up fights that are going to get interrupted halfway through. It seems like these fights are actually going to be continued until the very end, until like somebody gets defeated, which I am enjoying. And the other reason is the stuff with Frieza. It feels like we're getting some actual like character interactions and like character-based conflict between Vegeta and Frieza, and that sounds really interesting, and I do actually want to see this. So that was Dragon Ball Super episode 111. I mean, it was fine, it was serviceable, but it was a little bit disappointing. The fight between Hit and Jiren basically went exactly how you would expect the fight between Hit and Jiren to go, but it does feel like it's one of those situations where I almost expected they were going to do a bit more with it, a bit more with Hit's character, or a bit more with the fight, or a bit more with like what Hit's big final flashy attack is, and everything they did, it was fine and it was serviceable, but it was nothing really that special. I mean, yeah, sure, asking for something really special after the 1 hour special might be a bit of a ridiculous presumption to make, but I mean, everyone wants every episode to be the best episodes ever, and I mean, that doesn't always happen, I guess. But it also means that next week we've got a new episode, and the new episode might also be way better or way more interesting and stuff. But yeah, we're officially halfway through the tournament. We got a new kind of background color to show for it. And like I said, I think the one thing that I'm wanting from the next few episodes is these fights that all the characters are actually having are going to be fights until the very end, and they don't just keep getting interrupted by somebody else showing up or like somebody crashing into them and being like, okay, well, we'll have our rematch next time. Like, I think the time for introductions are over. We need our rematches, and I would like the rematches to be the rematches that are the final rematches that actually kind of explain why these characters are all there in the first place. In particular, like, you know, the Universe 6 Saiyans, the Universe 11 guys, Riprian, the Namekians, all those people, you know, all those kinds of characters. I do want to see what they're there for as opposed to just fun fights. I'm assuming they're there for a bigger reason, you know. Even if it's just that they're there for a bigger fight, I want to see that bigger fight. So this is Gabby signing out, and I'll see you all next week. Bye, guys.